She stood by the window, gazing out into the dark night, the soft hum of rain hitting the glass. Every drop reminded her of him. His warmth, his smile, the way his eyes lit up when he laughed. They had spent countless nights in each other's arms, whispering promises that seemed unbreakable. But tonight, the bed behind her was empty. He hadn't returned. They had met by chance, a fleeting moment on an ordinary day. But something in their connection felt extraordinary. It was the kind of love people dream about, magnetic, consuming, and beautiful. Their world revolved around each other, every breath, every glance laced with unspoken devotion. But over the past few weeks, she had felt a shift, a shadow that hung between them, growing darker with each passing day. He had started coming home late, his explanations vague. Just work, he'd say, but his eyes held something else, something he couldn't put into words. She didn't pry, didn't push him, though her heart twisted with unease. She trusted him, or she wanted to. Tonight, however, the hours slipped by, and he still hadn't walked through the door. Her fingers gripped her phone, the temptation to call him rising with every tick of the clock, but she couldn't. She had to know if he would come back on his own. Deep down, she feared what the silence might mean. The rain intensified, echoing the storm brewing inside her. She paced the room, her mind replaying every recent conversation, searching for clues she might have missed. Was he falling out of love? Was there someone else? Her heart screamed for answers. Suddenly, there was a noise, soft but unmistakable. The front door creaked open. She froze, her pulse quickening. A figure stepped into the hallway, drenched from the rain. It was him. Relief flooded her, but only for a second. His expression was one she didn't recognize, haunted, distant, like a man returning from a place he couldn't describe. She didn't say anything as he approached her, the tension in the air almost unbearable. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, his body trembling. "I'm sorry," he whispered, breaking the silence. His voice was raw, filled with an emotion that sent shivers down her spine. Her heart raced. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice barely audible. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with guilt and something darker, fear. "I've been trying to protect you," he said, his voice shaking. "There's something I haven't told you, something dangerous." She took a step back, confusion washing over her. Protect her? From what? Before she could ask, he stood up and walked toward her, his hands trembling as he reached for hers. "I never wanted to lie to you," he continued, "but I had to, for your safety." Her mind raced, trying to make sense of his words. What danger could there be? Their life was ordinary, simple, until now. He swallowed hard, his eyes locking with hers. "They're coming for me, and I don't know if I can stop them this time." Her breath hitched. "Who? What are you talking about?" He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, there was a loud knock on the door. The sound reverberated through the room, chilling her to the core. He turned to her, his face pale. "You need to hide. Now." She stood frozen, her mind reeling. The love they had shared, the life they had built, all of it seemed to be crumbling before her eyes. What was happening? Who was after him? And why hadn't he told her any of this before? Another knock, more forceful this time, echoed through the house. "Please," he pleaded, his voice desperate. "I'll explain everything later, but you need to trust me now." Her heart raced as fear gripped her, but she nodded. She ran toward the closet, her mind spinning with 1,000 unanswered questions. As she closed the door behind her, she heard him open the front door, his voice low but firm as he spoke to whoever was outside. She pressed her ear against the closet door, trying to catch bits of the conversation, but it was too muffled. All she could hear were faint voices, his and someone else's. Then there was silence. Cold, deafening silence. She held her breath, waiting for him to return, but minutes passed, and he didn't. Panic rose within her as she slowly pushed open the closet door and stepped into the hallway. The front door was wide open, rain pouring in, but he was gone. She stood there, her heart pounding in her chest, wondering where he had gone and whether she would ever see him again. The love of her life had disappeared into the night, leaving her with nothing but questions, and the haunting realization that she had only known part of his story.